Welcome to my vlog on Jaisalmer. From Jaipur, we took an overnight journey in the Leelan Express and reached Jaisalmer at around 5 am and directly checked into the hotel. It was a nice hotel and resembled a Purani Haveli. The poster bed with decorative curtains and jarokha made it very colorful. The jarokha is very common in Rajasthani architecture, which is a stone window projecting out of the wall face overlooking the street. We climbed up to the third floor terrace, from where we got a superb view of the great Jaisalmer fort. It stands atop the Trikuta hill amidst the great Indian Thar desert. This massive fort is of half a kilometer in length and a quarter of a kilometer in width and a perimeter of 4 kilometers. On the other side, we could get an amazing sight of the Great Thar Desert. The open dining on the second floor with jarokhas was also an interesting part of the Haveli. We had breakfast and started our trip. Jaisalmer is adorned with lakes, forts, ornate Jain temples, and Havelis. Gadisar Lake was our first destination. The lake was built in the 14th century and later revamped by the Maharaja Gadsi Singh, which gave the lake its current name. Several elevated domed chhatris with steps to the lake presented a very rare and a captivating sight. Chhatris symbolize the element of pride and honor in Rajput architecture. This magnificent arched gateway, named Trilonki Pole, is made of yellow sandstone and has intricately carved windows and chhatris. A lot of birds were seen on these structures. Locals say that during winter, migratory birds from the nearby Bharatpur Bird Sanctuary can even be spotted here. It was the only source of water supply to the city until 1965. The banks of Gadisar Lake are also dotted with several small temples, ghats, and chhatris that make it look so beautiful. These are some of the great accomplishments left by those visionary rulers that we still enjoy. From there, we resumed our journey to the most prominent landmark in Jaisalmer, which is the fort that was built during the 12th to 15th century. About a quarter of the city's population still lives inside the fort. It is one of the largest fortifications on the planet and believed to be one of the very few living forts in the world, such as the Carcassonne Fort in France. This is the Suraj Pole or the Sun Gate. Passing by the Suraj Pole, we entered the Manak Chowk, where we saw the amazing architecture and craftsmanship of Rajasthani artists. This fort is now a UNESCO World Heritage Site. The Manak Chowk also offers you a view of the fort architecture and engineering excellence. The main attractions inside the fort are the royal palace and the Jain temples. We then reached the main square inside the fort, which is the Dasara Chowk. Towering over this chowk is the 11th story palace that served as the private residence of the great Rajput rulers. The history says that this fort has survived several attacks by the Khalji dynasty ruler like Alauddin Khalji and Mughal Emperor Humayun. The fort showcases a blend of Mughal and Rajput architecture. These highly decorative and elaborate stone carvings on the windows are quite magical. One of the major attractions inside the palace is the Rang Mahal, which is an exquisitely painted and mirrored room that served as the bedroom of Maharaja. Here is where Maharaja discussed strategies with his commanders. Other attractions in the palace include a gallery of sculptures, a display of stamps of the erstwhile states of Rajputana, and a balcony that served as a venue for the drummers who raised alarms to alert the populace of an advancing enemy. Picturesque courtyards continued to follow one after another, overlooked by the sandstone balconies carved with incredible skill. This is Maharaval Jaisal, who built this fort in 12th century. The royal dynasty of Jaisalmer claims to be the descendants of Lord Krishna, and the entire family genealogy is displayed in the fort. We reached the top terrace of the fort. As you may notice, some parts of the fort houses hotels, restaurants, and even residences. It also gives a glimpse of the Jain temples and markets. Several narrow winding pathways run across and interlock different parts of the fort. From the royal palace, we took one of those pathways and reached the Sri Chandraprabhu Swami temple. It is one of the 7 temples constructed around 15th and 16th century dedicated to the 8th Tirthankara Chandraprabhuji. The 2-storied temple, constructed in yellow sandstone, is a beautiful symbol of ancient Rajput architectural style. The geometric patterns, intricate designs, the carvings, and the curved facades of the temple presents a very impressive sight. The interesting story is that though the Rajput rulers had a lot of land and power, they were not very wealthy. Jaisalmer was a part of the old Silk Route, and the Jains were controlling the trade, which made them super rich. These wealthy Jains agreed to finance the fort if the king agreed to build the temples inside the fort to withstand the invasions and protect the temples. It was a win-win agreement, and it is only because of this we are lucky to see these magnificent temples here. The dragon sculpture, what you are seeing at the bottom, indicates the strong Chinese influence on the Silk Route. A day or two is too less to really explore this whole wonderland, but as we had many more to cover on the trail ahead, we had to cut short our exploration of the fort with this temple. These yellow sandstone walls lend the fort a golden hue when the sunlight falls on it, thus giving it the name the Sonar Khila or the Golden Fort. It was noon by then, and we thought to have our lunch. We had a nice Rajasthani lunch and continued our journey to the next destination, which was the Mandir Palace Museum. This palace had been the residence of the rulers of Jaisalmer for more than 2 centuries and is well known for its fine stone carvings, ornate balconies, canopies, and finely carved screens that showcases remarkable Rajasthani craftsmanship. It houses a heritage museum with a lot of ancient artifacts covering the board games, the various tools, and the machines that were used by the royal family. Recently, another part of the palace has been transformed into a premier heritage hotel. From there, we drove to Patwam Ki Haveli, which is an architectural wonder in the streets of the city marked by intricate carvings and murals. This is the biggest and the largest among the different Havelis in Jaisalmer. As the Haveli stands in a narrow lane, the administration has set aside this space in front of it to get a nice view of the Haveli. Patwam Ki Haveli is not one, but rather a cluster of 5 Havelis built with yellow sandstone in the 19th century, which took almost 50 years for its construction. The Patwa family is believed to be the richest Jain merchants in Jaisalmer, who were traders in the old Silk Route. After spending some time, we resumed our journey to Ludrava, located around 15 kilometers away from the city. This Ludrava Jain temple has more than 900 years of history, built in memory of the 23rd Jain Tirthankara named Parshvanatha. It is a typical 8-cornered temple architecture with an exceptionally intricate jali work in stone throughout the outer wall. Ludrava was the ancient capital of the Bati dynasty until Raval Jaisal moved the capital to Jaisalmer in 12th century. A Kalpa Vriksha was also seen enclosed inside a stone structure which is believed to be the wish-fulfilling tree. You may notice a beautifully decorated gate at the entrance. The village and the temple were ransacked a couple of times by Muslim rulers like Muhammad of Ghazni and Muhammad Ghori in 11th and 12th centuries. From there, we left to the last destination of the day, which was the Bada Bagh. Though Jaisalmer is known to be a desert city, the rulers made attempts to add some greenery to its landscape. The Bada Bagh was one such endeavor that stood the test of time and is now a sprawling garden. Located 6 kilometers from Jaisalmer, this garden complex is home to the royal tombs and is among the popular places to visit in Jaisalmer. There were a lot of beautifully architected tombstones of the royal families on a small hillside. These are dedicated to each of the Bati rulers. Some of these tombstones are as old as the history of Jaisalmer and are a perfect delight for the visitors. An artificially built reservoir just beside is main source of water to this garden. Spent a good amount of time till sunset and then returned to the hotel, ending one of our most eventful days in the trip. The next day, we had a very exciting trip on our way to the Tanot Mada temple, located at about 120 kilometers away from Jaisalmer and just about 20 kilometers away from the Indo-Pak international border. The entire trip was across the Great Thar Desert, which is the 7th largest desert in the world. It was an unforgettable experience driving through the arid yet serene vastness of nature. There was a rare sight of an unending array of wind turbines for kilometers, which were a part of the Jaisalmer Wind Park. It is one of the largest wind farms in the world. Many devotees were found going by walk to Tanot. That too, a few of them walking even barefoot through this terribly harsh desert environment. It was an extremely rich learning experience traveling through these varying terrains and desert vegetation consisting of perennial and ephemeral plants with adaptations that enable them to survive in these low water conditions. Tanot Mata temple was not famous outside the local community until 1965, though it is believed to have a history since 8th century. In 1965, Pakistan Army attacked Tanot as it was a strategic point to move towards Jaisalmer. They fired around 3,000 bomb shells and at least 450 were fired on the temple. None of the 450 shells either hit their targets or exploded. In the middle of that war zone, the temple stood tall without any damages. With this miraculous incident, this temple became a center of special reverence for armed forces. After almost 3 hours of drive, we reached Tanot. At the temple entrance, there is a victory pillar known as Tanot Vijay Stambha erected to commemorate the victory in the Battle of Longewala. This is the temple complex. After the 1965 war, BSF established a security post at Tanod and renovated this temple. BSF Jawans also perform all the rituals in the temple. It is the last point on the road where an Indian citizen can go without any permit. Tanod is truly an offbeat destination to cherish a lifetime memory, and from there we continued our journey to Longewala, located around 40 kilometers away. The entire road runs parallel to the border approximately at a distance of 20 kilometers. In an hour, we reached Longewala. The BSF bunkers are the only human settlements there. It was the famous battleground of 1971 war that became a graveyard of Pakistani tanks, other vehicles and supported machineries. Major Kuldeep Singh Chandpuri, who was commanding the Longewala post despite heavy odds, refused to abandon the post and displayed the highest level of courage and valor and fought the war to victory, freeing the Pak soldiers from Indian soil. He later became brigadier and was awarded the Mahavir Chakra for his exceptional leadership. At least 37 Pakistani tanks and 138 vehicles were destroyed or abandoned in this battle. The famous Bollywood movie Border by J.P. Datta is based on the Battle of Longewala. This year, Prime Minister Modi ji celebrated Diwali with soldiers at Longewala. We got a very unique and a rare opportunity to experience a real battlefield and meet the army personnel. Those are the occasions where we feel very proud of our motherland and the armed forces. From here, we resumed our journey to the desert camp for the overnight stay. At around 5 pm, we reached the camp. The entire camp was filled with lots of tents and it was a very different experience. The event started with a traditional welcome by the Rajasthani artists, followed by the dinner in the open sky around the campfire, entertaining us with cultural performances. This was the last day in Jaisalmer, had breakfast from the camp and drove back to Jaisalmer city. En route, we had a short stop at another famous Jain temple. This was built in 1928 and is dedicated to Lord Parshvanath, called Adeshwarnath Jain Temple. The architecture looks unique with its intricate hand carvings and small domes. The structure is a masterpiece in itself with an appealing design of the ivory marble exterior. The golden architecture, adorned with Jaisalmeri stones, shines gorgeously during the day and is a key attraction of the place. This trip was truly an exceptional one, with an amalgam of exotic Indian desert culture, heritage, and adventure. We reached the hotel by 1 pm, had lunch, and went out for the final shopping, ending our 3 memorable days in the Golden City. Thank you for traveling with me. Please also watch my other travel vlogs. The links are given in the description below. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And please click the notification bell to get more videos.